go ahead and run it up. So Thursday night, and don't see anybody in the chat yet, but we got 0 viewers. So until some people hop on, probably just hang out here and see who's going to show up. Maybe midday is the time to do this instead of in the middle of the night. Yeah, we had a lot more people at like 4 o'clock when we ran the test on this deal, so maybe that's... Get into the ETFs that are looking to be approved by the SEC, all the institutions that are currently looking for that approval, and some of the implications that might be in store for everybody when that happens. So let's see here, ETC, ETF applications. We have Grayscale, BlackRock, Fidelity. Here we go. Looking for the 13. Got BlackRock. Like I said, Grayscale, Fidelity. Bitwise, Wisdom Tree. Who else here? Invesco. There's going to be a bunch of these that probably all get approved here at the same time. And there we go. A couple more people hopped in the chat. Appreciate you guys. Turns, appreciate you, brother. I'm looking forward to seeing you in the group as well. So if these things get approved, and you know, it sounds like the paperwork's done, you know, the SEC's really delayed this as long as they can, or could have. They've pushed it off, you know, made everybody execute changes, the S1 filings. Everybody's got everything filed in Delaware like they need to. And it seems like, you know, we'll go live somewhere between the 5th and the 10th. Pretty interesting timing for everything. We got Jonathan Maid. What's up, brother? Appreciate you hopping on here. I know it's late. Maybe you got the kids down. I just put mine down. So that's why I'm on here. If these are approved, you've got a huge amount of liquidity that's going to move into digital assets. For any of the assets that an ETF is approved for, you know, first in line's Bitcoin. We've got some other, you know, people that have attempted to file ETFs for Ethereum, those are the 2 most liquid assets at this time. Tether is going to be, you know, also probably, it's in the top 3. It's one of the top 3 most liquid assets. Then we've got the fake filing for XRP, for BlackRock and that ETF that we really haven't heard anything on in a while. Last thing, I think it was like November 13th was when that, you know, fake news happened. And then by that Friday, you know, they're talking about they'd reported it to the DOJ, and then crickets. Hadn't heard anything since then. So we'll see. Hey, cool. Appreciate you hopping in here from Jamaica. Nice to see a couple people. Be interesting to see what they approve and what they don't. We've got a lot of people posturing. Looks like 39% of advisors do not, well, actually believe that it's going to get passed and approved here in 2024. The rest of them are skeptical on that. Patients for their clients approved here in January, and when that happens, I think you're going to see, you know, significant adoption. Will it be Bitcoin? Will it be Ethereum? Will it be XRP? We'll have to see, you know, what ends up getting pushed through. But Bitcoin seems the most likely. I mean, there's, you know, I think we got a total of 13 or 14 filings, different firms. Goldman's in there now. And I saw Citi is actually going to do depository receipts, so it doesn't require a Bitcoin filing or an S1 filing for that, but they still will have the underlying collateral that they'll collect. So what are the broader implications for Bitcoin if that happens? It's going to be in the hands of a few people. You've already got MicroStrategy and Michael Saylor that own somewhere around 1% of the total supply, like 2.1 million Bitcoin. He currently has like 5.9 billion invested. He's currently in a profit of like managers and people that have large allocations. They sell to the institutions as they pile in here, and their exit liquidity for them as they bring retail into the market. People that have held for an extended period of time, Tesla even, they still have like $360 million worth of Bitcoin on their balance sheet. It's big, big money. We can pay out some of the deals and make sure that people are taken care of. Buffering is bad. Okay, well, let me see here. What do we got? Download speed back from you guys is great. If y'all have anything, yeah, there's Michael Mitchell Foster. He says it's buffering pretty bad also. I've got fiber. They just laid fiber in my neighborhood, and so it's going to be like 3-4 weeks, and then we'll have like good upload instead of just Starlink. So appreciate you guys, bearing with me in the short term here. And we can downgrade the audio or the video quality, and maybe it'll buffer a little better. So good feedback. Appreciate that. So this is also kind of the antithesis of what Bitcoin people want. The whole decentralized movement and that component, what's that gonna do to that narrative? There's only 21 million Bitcoin supposedly, and if all these institutions buy it up, and then they control the supply, I don't know. It just doesn't seem like that aligns with what most people that own this want it to be. Got a few people here in the chat. I'll touch on some questions here in just a minute. So I do have a final point with this. Basically, what's going to happen with the ETFs if they are approved is you're going to see a minimum of a 10x in the asset class itself. So we're currently like 1.3, 1.4 trillion total market cap. We're looking at 13 or 14 trillion is what this will move to, and it's going to be crazy. That whole lie is about to unravel. Yeah, well, I don't disagree with you. I don't know which lie you're pointing about, but there's a lot of things that are coming to light right now. Be interesting. I think 2024 is just going to be a year where people's minds are blown, and people that have been seeking knowledge probably are a bit more prepared for some of the stuff that's going to come out. So we do have a few questions here. Peter's asked, anything to share about the PolySign auction tomorrow? There's not an auction tomorrow. I will have a statement from PolySign, a joint statement from them and Boathouse at some point tomorrow, is what I've been told, that I'll be able to share with my clients and those that are close to me. They're not going to make a public announcement on anything that I'm aware of, but anybody that is a shareholder or deserves some type of answer will get it, and be happy to share that, likely to our Mastermind group. If you guys want, all of my clients that we hold funds for with PolySign and their infrastructure will also be aware of whatever statement they put out officially with Boathouse. So when I asked about the auction today, they said no, there will not be an auction tomorrow, and we will get a joint statement. A couple other things. So let's see here. Sorry, let me move my camera so I can read the chat. Deloitte considered a competitor to family offices. We actually work with Deloitte in a consulting manner. There's a few services that we partner with them on for the family office. I think that they do a fantastic job of helping with traditional wealth management and estate planning and a lot of the components of a family office. They've got a lot of very good seasoned professionals there. I wouldn't think they're not really a competitor to family offices. They actually facilitate a lot of the services that a family office I think is very good, maybe within the scope of a family office, and they actually have a really good chart on some of the services that most people keep in-house, services that you might outsource, and then services that are almost always outsourced for a family office. And they do a lot of those almost always outsourced components for a family office. So I really like Deloitte. Don't really view them as a competitor to family offices. They're more of a partner for family offices than anything else. AC Cobra says a lot of future millionaires will be made. Yeah, I don't think just millionaires. I think billionaires to be made. Again, you're gonna have to have pretty significant allocations to things, but this next go will be a lot of people will do really well. A couple other people in the chat here. Focus. What do you think about Tether and ETH? Will there be a big black swan to usher in global regulation? Good question. I think things are positioned in a way that they can pull the rug on all three of those assets that you mentioned there, and by three, I'm talking about Bitcoin attached to Tether and Ethereum. You got ETHgate and the headwinds and the implications that that's going to have. You've got Eleanor Terrett, who's going to interview Steve Narioff. I think she's going to have coffee component moving forward for smart contract capability on top of other networks. But Ethereum, the blockchain itself, I think probably might have some problems that occur. And the liquidity that's in that network will have to move onto other chains. Tether, and I'm sure you probably meant BTC, but that's not what got spelled there. Tether has never been audited. They've been asked to report their backing over and over and over again. They said that they now have shored up their reserves with like 75% U.S. Treasuries. What happens if we default on U.S. Treasuries? I don't know. That's never happened in my lifetime. Hopefully it won't ever happen in my lifetime. That would be very bad for the U.S. But we're at 34 trillion in debt at this point. I think Tether's been used to purchase U.S. Treasuries in recent years. Interesting theory I haven't heard anybody else talk about. We'll see, maybe that's the scapegoat that we use to transition. I think that there's definitely going to have to be something. I mean, you don't make the logo of Tether an atomic bomb for it not to blow up and be a problem. There's a lot of symbolism there. So, maybe I'll tell you this. I know Ripple uses Tether in certain corridors because it's more liquid than XRP. That was discussed at Swell when we were there this year. And, it makes sense that they would facilitate some of the ODL payments in Tether. In order to do that at scale with XRP, you're probably going to have to remove Tether and make XRP more liquid than Tether. How do they do that? Your guess is as good as mine, but yeah, maybe I think that there's some other dominoes that have to fall. I don't think it'll be Tether. I think it'll be something to do with the U.S. dollar and the backing that now Tether supposedly has that'll cause further implications for the broader crypto market and potentially global markets as a whole. Mitchell Foster says, I don't know if it's on my end, but like I said, we'll get fiber here soon and have crazy good upload speed. Sir Rayan says, thank you, Jake. Any truth about XRP and being an ESSR we cannot hold? ESDR. So special drawing right is not something that a individual will be able to hold. But I don't really believe that XRP will be an ESDR. It might be in the basket. You'd have to have a country that adopted XRP as a currency, which could definitely happen. You got Liechtenstein and Luxembourg, two countries that have strong affiliations with Jed McCaleb and Ripple. We'll see what ends up happening there. But I've never bought the ESDR deal. The IMF wrote a paper in 2014 where they referred to an exchange rate peg, and then shortly after Ripple rebranded Ripples to XRP, which was the acronym that was used in that paper. Yeah, maybe we'll lower the exchange easily between global reserve currencies that all sit in the basket of the ESDR. How about a global stablecoin supranational currency? Yeah, I could get on board with that. Swamp Ming. I think that's more likely the role. I mean, if you Google global bridge currency right now, XRP comes up on Google for that use case. That's really where I see it. I don't. And here's people are concerned, and I was for a long time, that this stuff might be taken from you in some capacity or made illegal for you to own, like governments do. Don't think that's going to be the case. Just after all the work that I've done and the people that I've met and what we're doing for our clients, I asked all these questions and was given very good answers to them by people that are smarter than me and more well connected than I am. And so you will definitely be able to hold it. Those that have it, I think, will reap rewards on that side. If you custody it in the right spot, and I think that you will be incentivized to use it in some capacity once the AMMs go live and some of the other things on the network are at scale. I think if you just leave it sitting there, you're probably missing out. Whereas those that use it will reap pretty significant rewards for doing so. Hey Kenda, appreciate you hopping on here. A few more questions. Hocus Focus Spocus says, how are you feeling about hardware wallets and self-custody? Do you think this will stay in the future, or are there changes coming, for example, digital ID compliance with the software or something? Yeah, digital ID is definitely on the horizon. So there's two components that you have to have that are the boring pieces for all of this stuff to scale, for you to get all the sexy stuff that I talk about, where you have collateralized loans and the capability for that side of things. And ID is one of those. We're going to have you got to be in compliance with KYC, AML, BIS, OFAC, all that stuff. And to do that, you're going to have to register the wallet in some entity's name or person's name, have a beneficiary attached to it, all that stuff. That's why, I suggest that you move assets into an LLC or a trust previous to price appreciation, or shortly after, however you want to do it. But I think that'll provide at least some layer of anonymity for people that want to transact and hold it long term. So that's kind of the digital ID component. Now, self-custody. I think stuff's come a long way. as far as self-custody goes, but you're never going to have insurance on self-custody. There's just, as long as a human is involved with the transactions in this stuff, you're going to have errors. And I don't know how many of you, but I've sent thousands of dollars into the abyss. What would be worth probably $20,000 or $30,000 today, on fat fingering and copy pasting the wrong wallet address or not typing it correctly. All that stuff's going to go away. These long hashes and the wallet addresses, we're going to have to simplify that. And ID is a big component of it. Once you can attach that wallet address to a person's name or an account number or something that's easier to manage for people, whatever reason. And I don't think you should have all your eggs in one basket. I'm very confident in PolySign. That's where I have my stuff. I sleep really well at night with that. I've got the insurance on it, but PolySign doesn't have any access to my assets. It's really just the infrastructure for the most secure cold wallet on the planet, and you make sure that the right person or the other people get involved that are supposed to be the beneficiaries, right? But they don't really have any access or ability to transact with the assets. All the transactions, no people are involved. It's all algorithmic and done on the proprietary blockchain that they've created. That's a secondary layer on top of the XRPL, similar to the XRP ledger. I don't know how much more bulletproof you could get. Let's see here. I'm not sure in what context. We'll probably have to go back and look at that. Yeah, I'm confident that the East will likely adopt this stuff before the West. I think that they have a significant incentive to do so. BRICS and BRICS Plus and the 160 nations that have joined that coalition, and you got Saudi Arabia that's now joined BRICS as well. So anything that was the petrodollar, it's pretty much gone at this point. They're transacting purchase of oil from the Middle East and other currencies. We no longer have a monopoly on that here in the West, and we're moving to a multipolar world, and you need an asset that can facilitate exchange between all those. That's where I see things going. Is that Bitcoin? Is it something else? I would argue XRP, but it could be something else. But with all the partnerships and everything that's been established at this point, I'm pretty confident that that's probably the way it goes. Cobra says, what do you think of Stronghold? I haven't done enough research on Stronghold to tell you one way or another, to be completely candid. I think that there will be a lot of layer 2s that have a lot of adoption and use case at scale on not proprietary networks, but what I think will be the main 3 to 5 networks that exist that are interoperable, that the world's transactions move on. You're going to need smart contract capability that's a secondary layer on top of those to facilitate transactions. I don't even know if that's what Stronghold is, but if it's on top of Stellar, I would assume that it has some type of capability like that. I need to do some research on it. It's the real answer. I think that and Avalanche have a lot of applications just based on the few conversations I've had around it, and so that's really what I would say on it. If anybody uses my services post-moon, I'm just hopeful that people start thinking about this stuff before it happens, and you build out a network of professionals or have a game plan or understand what you're going to do with it. On Quincy's podcast, they position themselves well, and then what does a dog do when it catches the car? Does it get run over? Does it know how to drive it? If it hadn't got a driver's license and figured it out by the time it catches the car, there's gonna be problems. Lambo to thinking about how to be able to get it into things that cash flow for you, that pay for your expenses. So, and maybe that's the asset itself. Like I said, the AMMs and The other things that are launched on top of these networks, I think it will be likely that you're able to produce income with the assets themselves in some manner, and also take leverage against them. That's why everybody likes real estate, and why it's been a mainstay for as long as it has. A few more questions. M. Hetler says, do you think XRP will dip further? Your guess is as good as mine on that. It's interesting to me that we're back at like 58 cents. Anything less than $1, I think, is fantastic price. Just personally, I just want to state this, for anybody that listens now or back to it later on. Nothing said here is financial advice. All for entertainment, educational purposes only. Always consult with your financial advisor before making any investment decisions. I am not an investment advisor, and this is just for shits and grins. So, do I think it'll dip further? It could. What I've been looking at, like, almost every day the past couple weeks is XRP to BTC. I don't know if you guys ever check that chart out. I'm normally not a chart guy. I'm not a TA guy. It's not what I do. But every time XRP has touched like 13 thousandths of a Bitcoin, there tends to be a pretty significant move to the upside, and that's about where we are. And it pulled down into that on this last go. Possible. I don't think it's. I think up is more likely than lower, but I've been wrong before. I'm not a trader, so we'll have to see how things play out. I do think that institutions would like to buy it lower, so same thing with Bitcoin. If the ETFs are going to get approved, it makes sense that you would have a lot of longs liquidated in the market, and then institutions could step in and scoop it up a bit cheaper. Same thing with the rest of the assets if there were going to be ETFs approved for them. So I always think to that side. I'm always thinking, what would an institution do? How are the big players positioning themselves? Because they can still manipulate the market, right? Like I said, this is just 1.3 or 1.4 trillion dollars in market cap, which sounds like a lot of money, but in the real world of finance, it's a gnat on an elephant's ass. Gold is $11 trillion market cap. Stocks is 600 trillion. This is just one. So a couple $1 billion, you can make some moves in crypto. Swamp Ming says, who is most likely to emerge as top digital asset custodial platform for accredited investors? PolySign. Anchorage is good too. So I've talked to all of them. We talked to Fortress. I've talked to Figure. I've talked to almost everybody that custodies institutional assets for digital assets. There's not anybody that I think does it better than PolySign. That's why we chose them as a partner for our clients. And when I say accredited, so the minimum to have an account there aside from our accounts is going to be like 3 to 5 million in assets, which you're definitely accredited if you're there. That's also when fees start to make sense. Also, we spread that out across our clients, so our minimum is 100,000 in assets. The caveat being you cannot own it as an individual. It does need to be in an LLC or trust if it's going to be held under our account. When you still get all the same benefits, it looks like you log into your own UI. It's segregated. There's no omnibus accounts. The other piece. So you said accredited. MG Stover is another subsidiary that was acquired early in 23 by PolySign, and they do the fund administration for digital asset funds currently. It's kind of their specialty, but really how they've positioned themselves is for tokenized securities. They have all of the protocol and smart contracts in place to be able to facilitate exchange and trade for those managers and do the fund administration and the accounting on tokenized securities. And so if you're accredited and you're participating in investments like that, then makes sense that PolySign would be the go-to there as well. And they'll license some of the IP that they have. One of the first questions I had for them when we were first meeting was, would they license their wallet infrastructure, and they said yes. AtomicNet they will not be licensing. That's a proprietary protocol that they're going to keep close to the vest. Let's see here. A couple more questions. We've got 50 yard, 150 yard 8-iron. I like that you play golf. I'm not trying to talk shit. It's my pitching wedge for 150. I played a lot of golf in my lifetime. But I actually may play again here soon in January. Can you speak to the reporting requirements for Corporate Transparency Act for anyone who's setting up an LLC to hold crypto in a self-directed IRA? So the Corporate Transparency Act is in effect this year. You'll have to file beneficiary of intent for an LLC. They originally had that deemed for like 30 days from when you file an LLC in 2024. If you filed an LLC in 2023, you actually get the full year to disclose that and fill the form out. If you file an LLC this year, you get 90 days in that. So they've pushed it to 90. A self-directed IRA. That for traditional IRAs and Roth IRAs. For digital assets, the two that I'm most familiar with are Bitcoin IRA and iTrust Capital. They both use digital trust as their custodian. They still use a person that goes in and gets to see your private keys and execute transactions in the level 4 facility that they house those cold wallets in. I'm not a big fan of that. You're also limited in scope for what you can do with your digital assets inside of an IRA. Taking leverage against them, using them for staking. There's some restrictions on the assets that you're holding inside of that IRA, LLC, or trust. So we're actually working. I don't know when this will come about, or it's going to take a while. But being able to move clients' assets from a traditional IRA or Roth IRA into a IRA trust or LLC without having to liquidate your position and buy back doesn't exist right now. So, let's say you did have assets at iTrust Capital, but you wanted to move them to Forge Trust, which is a company that specializes in self-directed IRA trusts or LLCs. They'll set up the vehicle for you and file everything. But in order to fund it, you would have to liquidate your other one, incur the tax implications and the penalties, and then fund the new one. We are looking to be able to facilitate that transfer in kind with no tax implications or fees associated. So you have, the flexibility and the other things that I mentioned before on the other side of that, whereas you don't right now if you hold it at iTrust or with a Bitcoin IRA. Let's see. Greetings. Appreciate you hopping in here. Don't sell your XRP. I don't give financial advice. You do whatever you want. I'm not selling mine. But again, everybody has their own prerogative. Focus says, do you invest in Casper? I really like Casper, and I'll tell you why. So, Casper is interesting to me in that it allows for public and private transactions. And I think that that's very useful in a lot of business applications. The XRPL is similar, right? So you have private chains or private networks and public chains, and they can be interoperable, right? So let's say you have a corporation that has transactions or smart contracts that are inherent to it, and you don't want those transactions to be privy to the public. You would have a private chain that you could execute that on, and have your accounting in-house and all that stuff. But when you wanted to interact with another corporation, and you wanted smart contract capability that was similar to whatever you're doing in-house, you can do that on the public chain, right? And it's interoperable, it's easy. So I think Casper has a lot of runway ahead of it. I think that, it's one of the things after we see the adoption for the payment. Jack says more to sign anymore, but I don't know if you're asking, do more NDAs expire soon, or if people are having to sign more. I don't know. Sherry says, greetings, Rick Cuna. Thank you, Sherry. I'm glad you're here. We do stuff like this twice a week in the Mastermind, just for people that are tuning in. So Beyond Broke Mastermind, we have a Discord channel, and a lot of resources there. A lot of the stuff that I'm discussing, we have SOPs for, and the resources to be able to do, just readily available for our members. And we also run private investments through that group that you wouldn't otherwise get access to. So would love to see some of you guys there if that's something you're interested in. We do them Saturdays and Mondays. This last couple weeks been off with the holidays, but that's what we'll be back to again. Charleston, South Carolina, Forge Trust. Yeah, there you go. Like I said, an IRA, LLC, or trust, I think, is a great vehicle for holding digital assets and being able to self-custody those or choose your custodian. Kevgon says, how do you hold digital assets in an LLC? Is a business account needed from Uphold or other financial institutions? Yeah, so I'll just walk you through the process. A lot of people make this more complicated than it needs to be. It depends on if you have an existing LLC or if you're filing a new one. If you are filing a new one, which is what I normally recommend, look up the LLC, your mailing address. I always just recommend using a P.O. box. So the anonymity there is pretty good. Secondary to that, Wyoming does not have any state taxes. So when you go to file your taxes at the end of the year, you're not going to be dinged like you would in Florida or New York. Well, Florida has no state tax, sorry. In California or New York, Iowa, there's a bunch of states in the Northeast that also have state tax. We don't here in Texas, but we don't have the anonymity. And the last component of that is Wyoming is the best jurisdiction currently in the U.S. for digital asset regulation. They were first to market on DAOs. Their governor there is very progressive when it comes to digital assets. Kraken was the first ever federally chartered bank to deal with digital assets that's located in Wyoming. So that's why the majority of the LLCs that we help our clients file are in Wyoming. To move your name and you can definitely do that. You can list that as an asset that's owned in the LLC, or to start the LLC for the capital contributions, or you can just start the business. And so when you draft the operating agreement, which you absolutely have to have if you have an LLC, otherwise somebody will pierce the corporate veil. It's a document that you have to have. So you'll draft that, and you can find templates online, or we can provide you with one. Address, the nomenclature for the asset, whatever the acronym or ticker is, the amount of the asset, and the dollar amount of the asset, that what it currently costs to purchase it, on the day of transfer, and you'll get that page notarized, and so that serves as a timestamp of when that transaction took place. If you bought another wallet and then transferred the assets to that wallet, that would affect the transfer into the LLC, and you would have the accounting on chain of the transfer of those assets. So you can do it either way. I like just writing it down for what you already have, and you don't have to move stuff around, which is nice. And yeah, you would want to execute setting up accounts in the name of the LLC with whatever the exchanges you plan to exit on cheaper. If that's something you guys are interested in, you can contact me and put you in contact with our broker there. It's going to be $250,000 or more. That's really what they're dealing with. So just keep that in mind. But the fees are like 15 to 30 basis points instead of 3 or 4% like it is on Uphold's traditional site. T Rich says XRP is a standard. I tend to agree, Mr. Rich. What do you think will be the result of the PolySign auction tomorrow? Again, as far as I'm aware, and the conversation I had today, There will be no auction tomorrow. They will be issuing a joint statement between themselves and Boathouse. We'll see. Wouldn't think that they would lie to me about that. There'd be some pretty serious implications if that was the case. But yeah, I don't anticipate any auction tomorrow. I do anticipate some type of official statement from PolySign and Boathouse that I'm able to share with our clients and the people in the Mastermind. Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate you guys, 60, 70 y'all hopping on here and taking the time to listen to me ramble about this stuff. Sherry says, we'll be checking it out. Learning so much. Thank you. Yes. Appreciate you. Arthur is a real person. Yes, he is a real person. Sir Rayon. I've not met him. I know multiple people who do know who he is, and where he lives, and he is a real person. He is just a very private individual. That's also why he was able to develop PolySign in the manner that he was, because he is so stringent about his own anonymity, and he just doesn't want to be in the public light and have anybody following him or looking for him. But he is a real person, and it's not Bob Way. I was convinced it was Bob Way for a long time. Him and Bob when XRP moons. Our team is, we've been very blessed. I'm very grateful to be in a position where I'm able to help other people, and we've got things in place that we can scale when the time comes, because I do anticipate it being a sharp rise when things go. That's the way that XRP always moves. We've got a really good team in place. We've got systems built out, and I've got other team members that are able to handle pretty good volume, just like I am, and I'm excited for what the future holds for all of us. It's gonna be wild when everything goes, for sure. But we've done everything we can to prepare for it. So, greatness is built on small steps, but it is no small thing. Well, it's a little bit every day, man. As long as you're taking one step, like you said, in the right direction every single day. People think overnight success happens. It's without any notoriety. They were just consistent and kept showing up and doing what they were supposed to do, and they were prepared when the opportunity arrived, and they were able to take advantage of it, right? That's going to be a lot of people that are probably listening to this and looking back at it later on. You did the due diligence, you put yourself in the right situation, you got the future multi-billionaire. What up, man? Jake is PolySign. Because we are a domestic company here to the US, we have that capability. We are looking to branch out into Australia as the first international jurisdiction that we offer a scope of services within. We do have a contact there that we are communicating with to be able to do that, but it'll have to still be under our account here. PolySign doesn't offer international services at this time. The company that's working with them would have to be domestic, but the clients can be international as long as they're able to go through the KYC and AML and everything. So yes, to long-winded, yes, we do custody multiple Australian funds currently. XLM, working on a lot of space quantum stuff behind the scenes. Yeah. XLM, XDC, XRP, the X's, the X assets, I think all of those will be highly used in the future, each for different components, but interoperable and integral to the financial system and different things that end up being scaled out. So Lucky asks, do you think we will be able to earn interest on our XRP. Yes, you will. So I don't know if you're familiar with the AMMs or the automated market makers that are going to go live on the XRP ledger. XLS30D is the name of the amendment that's currently up for vote, and we're about halfway there. We'll see. We've been halfway there for a month now. We got 35 validators and about 17 votes for yes. So I think once we crest the halfway point, I think things will move quickly. You're going to have liquidity in the asset before you can use that at scale. Maybe that's what they're waiting on, is some price appreciation before they pass the amendment. Kind of my thinking. But yeah, you'll be able to delegate your XRP to liquidity pools. The way that I think this functionality will work, and I'm guessing, it's an educated guess, but you should be able to escrow your XRP with a qualified custodian, be able to delegate that liquidity to a liquidity pool. It'll be represented there in LP tokens that are 50-50 on whatever assets are being traded. And I think there'll be 3 different components as to how you earn interest on that. I think one of it will be whatever time frame you're willing to lock it up for. They'll pay you an interest, a base rate on that. It's like a CD for a bank. What the interest rate is for that, your guess is as good as mine. You'll then have people that bid for the opportunity to arbitrage those markets for 24-hour periods. David speculates when we talked to him at Consensus last year that that'll be somewhere between 90 and 98% of what they can earn in that period of time is what they'll be willing to bid. So that's pretty significant for the people that are providing liquidity. That doesn't exist for any of the other automated market makers that are currently on these other networks. That's specific to the AMMs that have been built on the XRPO, and he geeks out on this. He was really excited to talk to us about it. And then the last component is you'll have exposure to whatever the assets are that are being traded in the liquidity pool. So let's say, we had Casper mentioned earlier. What if you provided, liquidity to HBAR and Casper as a trading pair? I think both of those will do fantastic in the coming years. And so if I was going to lock up my XRP for a year, 2 years, 3 years in a liquidity pool, I would want to do it in a liquidity pool where I thought the assets that were being traded there were going to appreciate significantly during that time period. Exposure to assets you have in the pool that I think will be 3 ways that generate pretty significant returns for people that are participating in that. We got a few more questions here. So many people. Appreciate y'all. These are good questions. Do you have any insight on how PolySign is going or not going to be affected by their partner that entered bankruptcy? So I'll give you all my understanding and what was validated by them. So they did have some structured debt with Boathouse, and there were payments that they had to make, and there were some other stipulations in the contract with them. One of those was growth and certain metrics that they had to meet each quarter. And if they didn't meet those things, then Boathouse could call the debt. And so that's what happened. Was Q3 rolled around, they did not meet some of those metrics. It's not like they missed a payment. They just didn't do what was listed in the contract. And so that allowed Boathouse to then call the debt on them. They've since taken that down. They've, according to my conversations, mended that relationship. And again, we'll be issuing a joint statement tomorrow on the topic. So as soon as I have something official, over it, and rightly so. Using the infrastructure that PolySign designed in the proprietary blockchain will not be affected, even if PolySign, the company, did go bankrupt. There's contingency plans put in place for the migration of those assets and the trust company that would then provide that service to another New York-based custodian. My speculation is that's BNY Mellon. I don't know that for sure. We'll see. Hopefully we don't see, but I'm just, the contingencies there. And they're bankruptcy remote. So again, PolySign doesn't have any access to any of the client's funds. They can't transact. There's no liens or leverage against them. This is the antithesis of FTX or Voyager or Celsius. Like, that's the whole point of standard custody and PolySign is they are the exact opposite, and basically, there would be no implications for anybody that had funds held there, which is nice. I've got a few more. How do we put crypto into an LLC when the LLC was only made to hold our crypto? Would IRS see this as a fake business with no real sales, nor the like? So we file it as a holding company where you make investments. You're in the business of making investments. Your crypto is an investment. Even if you don't make an investment that year, then it's still holding those assets. It's a holding company. If it accrues revenue, then you pay taxes on that revenue, or use that capital to reinvest or do things within the business that allow. And that's what you would file it as: making investments and holding assets. I try to do the best. So here's another component to this. A business only has to be profitable in the eyes of the IRS 1 out of 5 years. Okay? So you can lose, spend, dump, waste money 4 years. You got to be in the green 1 out of 5 when you're filing taxes. Now, if you're always in the red 3 years in a row, probably going to get audited. So probably a good idea, like 1 out of every 3 years you show some profit. Yeah, holding company is a real normal business. Thanks for all you do. No, I appreciate you guys. Appreciate y'all hopping in here and taking the time on a Thursday night at 10 p.m. Casper also has delegation rewards, gaining some passive income. Yeah, like I said, I think Casper is huge. I like the way that project's put together. I think it'll have pretty significant use case in the future, in a lot of corporate and enterprise solutions. Strive for greatness. These lives are what will make your business go. I don't even think about it like that, I have really good relationships with a lot of my clients, and I'd consider them friends. A lot of time we talk about stuff that's not even business. But yeah, I like in things where you have to win for me to win. Most people play zero-sum games. I don't like that. I don't like where somebody has to win and somebody has to lose. I want people to feel like they got one over on me for the amount of money that they've paid for whatever the service was. Like you got way more in real value than you paid in cash value. So that's how I always want to do business. So that's how I try to position it, and it's worked out really well so far. T-Rich says PolySign and Boathouse should have a private conversation and settle this behind the scenes. That's basically what I've been told. We don't have an official statement that's supposed to come out tomorrow. Thanks for answering with the insight you gave on PolySign challenges. Absolutely. But there's not a whole lot out there, right? And there's only 64 people watching this. I'm sure some other people watch it later on, but people want answers. This is what I got. We'll see what comes out tomorrow that's specific to it. It's an official statement, and I could be wildly wrong. It's just based on the information that I currently have at this time. So hopefully I'm not. Hopefully, whatever joint statement they put out tomorrow has good implications for equity holders. That would be really my only concern at this point. Let's see. Be holding XRP. I like your tag name, man. Should be been holding XRP. So can we get a discount on their custody service since they have a huge PR and finance nightmare? No. Their whole business model is custody. That's what you're paying for when you use their service. They don't make their money by leveraging your assets or taking loans out against them or reissuing them or rehypothecating them in any manner. So the only way that they make money is through their custody service, and so therefore you need to pay the fees associated with that if you want the benefits of it, right? That's kind of how it goes. So you're able to think that it fits a great use case, and the way they've positioned it in the market is fantastic. But it was really a solution to a problem that they had. The problem was people just sat their crypto on their exchange and did not make a trade for an entire year. And to maintain the compliance on those accounts cost them anywhere between $15 and $20 a year. Well, if you have thousands, and so if you're then able to create a solution that then you can monetize and turn into reoccurring revenue and move those people off of your platform into a cold wallet, you've now turned a cash suck into a cash generating machine. And so I think that was a brilliant business move that they made. And it also, like I said, fits a really good niche in the market that I don't think anybody else has got an equal offering for. Hey Jake, I'm late to the space. Did you happen to cover new IRS rules for crypto? Are you talking about the BOI form for the LLCs, or are there some other tax laws? I know you can still affect the wash rule. That doesn't exist for crypto. You could have harvested losses at the end of last year to offset capital gains, buy and sell, or sell and buy right back. I would mention for people, if you do trade more than, I don't know, let's say you make more than 20 trades a year, it might be a good idea to look into an LLC for trading. There's a specific NAICS code for that. I would file it under trading financial contracts. I wouldn't file it under trading crypto, because you're going to have a hard time getting a bank account with traditional banks if you do that. Of course, maybe in 2024 that won't be a problem. They'll start custodying the assets and be willing to take people on. You're taxed on the total and all these other ones that you have to attach to your exchanges, and it pulls in this CSV of all these transactions, and then it totals all of that. Like, that's crazy. And then you're gonna have taxes on each individual transaction. I'd rather just be taxed on the total gain or loss at the end of the year. Now, the caveat there is you do lose the capability to have long-term capital gains if you are in the business of trading. But if you're going to make more trades than that anyway, you're in the business of trading. So if you want the long-term capital gains, holding company is the way to go. Who is your sleeper project? XDC would be my sleeper project. Well, I say that. Honestly, like, probably XRP is the sleeper project. For most people, probably 99% of crypto doesn't know what's going to happen with that. XDC would fall in that camp too, though. Those are probably the two that I'm most bullish on in 2024. Miss Layman Jane says, if we take crypto profits directly into a personal IUL, how is that a taxable event compared to taking profits into a stable? So, yeah, you're going to have tax implications involved with that. The way that you could mitigate those would be, again, having your assets in an LLC, and then you could take out key employee insurance on the manager of that LLC, which is likely you. And then you could move it into an IUL and use that as a tax write-off, and then be able to leverage loans against it for business lines of credit. We, use that as a tool. It's not the end-all be-all. You want to make sure that the IUL that you're getting set up is structured correctly. There's a lot of snakes out there that they're just going to set you up in a variable rate policy and take advantage of you. I would be leery of that, and just make sure that you're really educated on an IUL if you're going to use that tool. Or you're working with somebody that actually has your best interest at heart, and they're not just looking at the dollar signs that they're going to get from signing up the policy. Anytime you take profit, you're going to be taxed as an individual on capital gains. Currently, with the way crypto's treated, it's treated as property, and so you're going to have capital gains, either short term or long term, when you convert that to anything else, whether that's stablecoin or precious metals. There's not a 1031 or something where you can defer taxes with crypto. Rocky Mountain Jack says, does PolySign hold the 3Xs currently? No, just XRP currently. They do not hold XLM or XDC. Even though I've pressed that topic, and hopefully they will bring that to market in 2024. What type of returns can XRP AMMs produce? Your guess is as good as mine. Strive for greatness. Well, let's just talk about, hypotheticals here. When I talked to Joel Katz at Consensus in April last year, I got the feeling it wasn't going to be a lot. But if it works the way that I think, like I said, you'll have a base rate. I don't know what that's going to be. Guess as good as mine. My expectation is something low, like 1 or 2%. The arbitrage in a market is going to depend on how volatile that market is and how many people are trading it and what they're willing to bid. So, wide range there. And then, again, whatever assets are in liquidity too, and both of those assets appreciate 300% over the year. Well, what does that do to your LP tokens? Well, they've got to have the liquidity to be able to, you've got exposure to both those assets, so now you got 300% return just by delegating liquidity to that pool. So that's, sky's the limit, or the floor is the limit. If you're providing liquidity between two very liquid currencies that are stable, they're not going to go up in value, so you're not going to get that component. They're likely going to be pegged in some capacity to whatever the collateral is that's backing them, if they're sovereign currencies and they're wholesale CBDCs. So you're not going to get much arbitrage. You'll probably get a higher base rate because those pools are still going to need liquidity, but it'll probably be a lot lower. That'd be probably more common to like a CD that exists today. How would XLS 30D regulations work with us taking staking profits from crypto held in our LLC company, deposited into... Man, you were stuck on this personal IUL. I like Coach JV. I think he's doing a good job educating people on that stuff. He has incentive. He's selling those insurance policies. Again, just be educated when you're using that stuff. Anybody that's selling it to you as the end-all be-all, I'm leery of. So we use PPLI, which is private placement life insurance. There are some stipulations to how that has to be invested in the insurance policy, but you pay a pretty hefty fee up front. Kind of the low end for PPLI is $5 million in assets. You can do that in kind. You can own real estate. You can own all kinds of stuff inside of private placement life insurance, and you can draw leverage against it in kind or in cash. That's the tool that we use, but an IUL can be an effective tool. I'm not saying it's not. So XRP won't be staking profits. You'll get LP tokens, and those will continue to accrue value inside of the liquidity pool until you take a distribution. And because you don't have direct ownership of them and they're not a distribution, you don't have any taxable event until you take that distribution. So ideally, we're able to leverage loans against those liquidity pools, and they work like a HELOC and they pay themselves off. I don't know if that'll be the case, but that's where I'm headed with it, and hopefully what we'll be able to accomplish. The two ways that you can mitigate taxes if you do have staking income is the wallet that those distributions are being made to has a lockup period before you have access to those returns in some way. Like Atomic Wallet does this. If you stake Atom, there's like a 20-day lockup period before you can take those out. That continues to accrue value with no tax implications until you take the distribution and execute the lockup period. The other way that you can mitigate those tax obligations is to have a multi-signature wallet. So if you and your financial advisor or your trustee or whoever have to sign off on a transaction before you can get access to those returns, not taxable until that event occurs. And then you have control of the asset. Control of the asset is what determines when the taxable event on staking income is accrued. Do taxes on linked to Ripple shares occur when you sell them after moving them into regular exchange, like TD Ameritrade after Ripple gets on public markets? Yeah, so if you continue to hold that allocation of Ripple shares beyond IPO without executing a sale, then you're deferring those capital gains. Whenever you execute the sale on a public market for those shares is when you will incur the tax implications, and it'll be at the cost basis for which you have whatever you invested at through Link2's platform. Do you have any good tips on private vaulting companies outside the U.S.? I assume you're talking about precious metals focus, but if you could verify that, then yeah, I have a few. I was looking into Medico, and although I'm still new to learning about Medico, it feels like for storage, the same way we have miners, Meta has a bunch of cold storage chips. What do you think? I actually just did a video, Strive for Greatness, on Medico and PolySign, if you want to go watch that. Medico just does software. They're not actually a custodian themselves. They'll have to partner with other banks that do have those licenses in whatever jurisdiction, like HSBC, who will be launching custody using Medico's Harmonize and Ripple's other stuff in Q1 of 2024. We got Casper, File, and Graph are sleepers. Yeah, I would agree with all those. Very familiar with Protocol Labs and the Interplanetary File Storage System. IFPS, I think, will actually be the like the EVM is for Ethereum. I think the IFPS will be that component for Filecoin. I'm not super bullish on the network itself, but that component of it, I am. Filecoin is going to be difficult to scale the way that it currently sits, and then that could change, right? They could change the protocol. What is an IUL? An IUL is an Index Universal Life Policy. It's a life insurance product. Here in the U.S., we have some very interesting laws around life insurance that allows it to be a financial product. I like to keep my investing separate of my insurance, but they're all tools. There's not a right or wrong way to do things. And rate and all the other and not just enrich themselves. Life insurance products for the Mastermind group. We've got a couple people that are what I would consider experts in the course. Is going to be very beneficial for our members and people that have access to it. B. Holden XRP says, do you lose your tax-free benefit on the insurance death benefit when you deduct the premiums? You lose your tax-free benefit on the insurance death benefit when you deduct your premiums. Well, right. Yeah, there's, again, just, they're all tools, considerations around that stuff. You want to make sure that you're aware of what you're getting into. Oh, Max. Appreciate you there on the Medico, Max. Big Man Bass. Hi, Jake. Do you think price appreciating a huge rise, or is it incremental? I think you're going to have a sharp rise in the beginning. Well, this is my theory. Again, could be completely wrong. We'll see what shakes out. This is how I think things go. So I think you're going to get a launch of these ETFs, whatever they might be. We talked about that at the beginning of this, live here. Liquidity pours into the market. Once you have the liquidity in the asset, then, some of these use cases and things that have been built out on side chains and through other means can then be utilized because there's enough liquidity on the network to be able to facilitate those transactions. And then that'll set price floors for things. So I think you'll continue to see liquidity come into the market over time. And as assets are tokenized on these protocols, the assets that then have to move that value that's been tokenized will appreciate by proxy, right? And so the way that I think we get out of the debt that we're in is you have two sides to a balance sheet. You have debts and liabilities, or assets and liabilities, or debits and credits. Sorry, I said that wrong. If you got a whole bunch of liabilities and not that much assets, maybe it comes up to here, and you're still not quite to the top of the debt. You could tokenize the stuff that was on this side on the same ledger that asset provided liquidity to, and the value of the asset would continue to rise as the debt remained the same. So that's how I think they actually get out of this. Is it's kind of a positive feedback loop. The asset that they draw debt against, so then tokenize what exists in the real world on that ledger, would then increase the value of the asset, and you can draw more debt against it. There was somebody in the EU that they called it a 100-year cheat code, and that's what I think it is. A lot of good questions. I probably am going to wrap it up here in about, maybe another 9 minutes or so. If we do affiliate marketing MLM and get a 1099, can we throw our affiliate marketing business under the holding company that we also wanted to house our crypto under? Yeah, I would have a holding company that owned the equity in the underlying subsidiary, and then you could pay distributions to the holding company. That's the way I would structure that. There could be some other components. I would have it segregated from the assets. MLM is a viable business, and people get mad about it and talk shit, but it is what it is. And I think they can be very lucrative and very good. But yeah, I would segregate whatever that business was separate of whatever assets you were holding, just so that if there were any lawsuits or implications there, it would be separated out. So that lawsuit would then be siloed to that LLC, as long as you have the operating agreement and the other things we've discussed in place. It would be contained there, and then only the assets in that LLC would be exposed to that lawsuit. So just some considerations you might have. I'm going to trade in my iTrust Capital account and any personal holdings I have held for over a year, so no issues paying the 10 to 20%. I will sell it, and that's perfectly fine for some people. I do want to mention that. So some people are cool with paying their 15 to 20% capital gains if they're long-term capital gains, and walking away with the rest of their money. Sometimes that's the best option. I had a gentleman that we were working with not too long ago that we went through all of his options, and that's the one he chose. And that's what's best for him and his family. So that's always an option. And if you're cool, if you're selling $10 million and you're giving $2 million to the government and you're keeping $8 million, cool. I think, for me, I think I could allocate that capital better than the government. But if you're real with yourself and you think that, you just would rather hand it to Uncle Sam and walk away with your 8 and know that you're good, sometimes it's less stress. A lot of times it's less stress. So do it that way. Look to jump back into projects that have staking rewards and just live off the income, pay taxes on that, have another bear market in crypto. I don't think the constraints, again, could definitely be wrong. That's my speculation. LLC versus trust. It's a good question, Paul. I need a little bit more context around that, though. So if we're just doing a juxtapose LLC to trust, LLC is limited if that's sued, and whatever assets you have, somebody can't come after it. It's more difficult to pierce the corporate veil. It can be done, but if somebody tries to pierce the corporate veil and come after you personally in a lawsuit, it's going to be more difficult with an LLC. A trust prevents somebody that sues you from getting to your assets. So you still have complete control over those assets, but they're held by another entity. So let's say you rear end somebody and it, causes problems for them, and they sue you and they find out you got a lot of money. Okay, they could do an asset search and find out, and they're going to come after you personally. If your assets are in a trust, they're going to spend a bunch of money and time and may or may not get anything. And that's what the lawyer is going to tell them. So an LLC protects you in a lawsuit. If something were to happen within that business, it's siloed. So like if you had a real estate property and it's inside an LLC and you had a bunch of other real estate properties, you want to segment those out into their own LLC. Somebody falls, cracks their head on your property, and they sue the property. They only have ability to put a lien against that property. They don't have the ability to come after the rest of your estate. Trust protects you if you do something. So let's say you're in another line of business that has a lot of liability. You're a doctor or a lawyer or something else that, you've got malpractice insurance of some kind if you're doing those things, but you could have something where somebody had emotional damages and they come after you for something far beyond your umbrella and your insurance. That's when you're going to want to set up a trust, because they're only going to be able to get what they can get, and then they're not going to have access to the rest of your estate. So hopefully that gives you a little more context about like why one's good and what they do. Thoughts on HBAR? I think HBAR is fantastic. Hedera Hashgraph is base layer for dApps and highly underrated in my opinion. Any truth to Corium being the secret Codius? No. No. I don't know who put that out there. Absolutely not. Do you think Corium is Codius? No. Hi, Jake. Did you hear about the new crypto tax rule that you must report any amount that you receive $10,000 or more? That's not a new tax rule. That's a pretty normal transactional rule. That's when you go to the bank and you send more than $10,000 or take more than $10,000 in cash, they're required to fill out a form. Exchanges are probably going to have to do that. When you go to Uphold and you send crypto somewhere, they ask you if you're sending it to your own personal wallet or to an employee or somebody that's a contractor, what you're doing with it, right? They're going to have to report that. And that's corporate transparency. Like, they want to know where the money's going. And as long as you're not doing anything illegal, it's not a big deal. It's kind of I don't know. It's just part of doing business. Transparent. And once we have digital identity in place, they're going to know exactly who and how much you sent it to and all that stuff. So if you got to report it, don't evade taxes. Just use the loopholes that exist to mitigate your tax obligation. That's what I do. Do you have other investment yourself, like carbon stocks, mining companies, or AI dividend stocks? We have investments in fintech companies. 99% of my net worth is in digital assets. I have a emergency fund in precious metals, so that's my allocation there, right? Like you get like 3 to 6 months worth of income or bills. I have that in precious metals, but everything else is. If I thought there was a better asymmetric bet in mining stocks or carbon or AI, then I would be positioned there. But I don't think that we're going to have another opportunity like what exists now in our kids' lifetime. So that's why I'm positioned where I am. Appreciate you, the prod. Paval says pre-IPO investing is where billionaires are made. Yes, I would agree with that statement. the majority of billionaires are made in owning equity in companies. I think a lot of billionaires will be made in crypto, but that's to be seen. Behold next up. T Rich, excited to see you at the event here in Dallas. We do have an event for the Mastermind group here in Dallas on February 24th. If you guys want to check that out, you do have to be a member of the Mastermind to attend, but yeah, the details will be listed in there if that's something you guys are interested in. This will be our third event here in Dallas for the Mastermind group. I don't know of any other groups that have actually thrown events on a regular basis, but we plan to do at least one a quarter for the Mastermind this year. Hey Jake, I was referring to the new crypto. This feed was choppy. Gonna rewatch the live. Yeah, we'll lower the resolution so it broadcasts a bit better. Quant is valuable to be sitting on ETH with those gas fees. I'm really not sold on Quant. I'll just be real with everybody on here. You pay the fee for that network in Quant. It really doesn't serve a use case outside of that. It's not like you need Quant to transact on the network through Overledger. You're basically paying for their service with the token. Seems like a security to me, personally. We'll see how that shakes out. I think Quant is overhyped and speculated, and for it to facilitate its use case, for it to be extremely valuable would be, it just doesn't make sense. So there's other people that think very different about it and probably are smarter than me, but that's how I currently, my current stance on Quant. I love these lives. Let's do more. Yeah, absolutely. We'll definitely be doing more of these either Wednesday or Thursday every single week. Just hit the like button. Yeah, thank y'all. I have something, Checkman, interested to see, different ways that you can mitigate tax obligations. With that, we are at the end of the chat here, so I'll go ahead and wrap it up. Just want to say I appreciate you guys hopping in and joining and viewing. Been on here about an hour and 30. We'll continue to do these more often. Like I said, Wednesday or Thursday night each week. We'll hop in here and do just kind of how I do spaces on Twitter. Run down a certain topic at the beginning, and then we'll open up for AMA. Great questions tonight, and I appreciate everybody that attended. And I hope you'll have a wonderful rest of your week.